Hi, I'm Jeff Goulding and I'm a Liverpool author.
And I'm Kieran Smith, the Liverpool historian.
Together, we've been working on a great new project, which is a book out later this year entitled The Untouchables, Anfield's Band of Brothers.
It's a great story about one of the greatest sides in Liverpool's history who won back-to-back titles in the 1920s.
Yeah, this is a team that is absolutely packed with incredible characters. Men who fought on the battlefields of Europe in the First World War and returned home to claim 2 league titles in a row.
And it's due for release in the UK in September. And thanks to our friendship now with the Liverpool Connection podcast, it's also going to be made available through them in the United States at the same time.
Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I'm Daz. I've got Steve with me, and all the way from Liverpool, we've got the Mr. I think one of the nicest fellas there is around football. Always gives me a smile on my face, and it's Mr. Mo Stewart from the Anfield Rap. Good. It's still morning there, so yeah, yep. Good morning.
What an introduction that is. Good morning, guys. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to this show. I enjoyed seeing you last, and I've enjoyed hearing you since. So I think this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, of course it is. Especially, I'm going to get into some of your DJing stuff as well. I DJ as well, but more the house music stuff. So I'd like to ask, later on, like how you got into that and all that good stuff. But you're on here for a reason, and that reason is Liverpool Football Club. And I'd like to start out by asking, why Liverpool?
Well, I got into football really, really young. Like, my dad was still playing at a semi-professional level when I was like 2 or 3. So I would be sitting on the sidelines in a pram watching him. So football was basically in me from that point. So whenever it was on TV, and it wasn't on TV often in the early 80s, I was there watching. And my dad was a Spurs fan, but I mean, he was more of a football fan, if I'm honest. At that time, it was more when we would have discussions about football throughout my life. It was always more about the style of play. That was what he was in love with. He liked Spurs mainly because of Ben Hoddle. But he never really forced that upon me. He allowed me to kind of pick my own team, bless him. And as I said, there wasn't much football on TV in the 80s, but when it was normally Liverpool. And so kind of started the seeds growing. And then I got given a book, one of those old kind of almanac books of like the history of football from like 1850s away through. And it does a section on all of the big teams at any point, and there's a big section on Liverpool. So I kind of read that and found it went into the history of like Shankly and like the 70s and 60s and stuff like that. And even like Billy Liddell and before all that. And I was just like, wow, these guys are cool. And then it just kind of gave me more context when I was watching the games. But the big bang was Barnes. Like when John Barnes joined Liverpool, I was like, right, okay. And that confirmed everything that I was thinking up to that point. Like, yeah, these guys are not only the best team, but now they're really cool. And that guy, kind of a bit like me. Like his family's from the same place that my family's from. He's left-footed. I was left-footed, even though I was left back, and John Barnes was never ever going to be a left back. But it was kind of like he was the embodiment of me. So it's like in my mind, where I was thinking about what it would be like if I was actually a footballer, I'd be looking at him and saying, that would be cool. Like, I could be him. Obviously, as the years went by, I realized, I couldn't be him. But that was it. I was already hooked.
Did you question him, though, when he was rapping?
I'm glad you mentioned this, because people seem to think that because I like music, particularly hip-hop, and because I love John Barnes, that would be my favorite song in the world. No, it's not. It's not. Like, it's not. In 1990, when you compare it to other raps that were going along, it was kind of par for a sports person. It was an all right try. The fact that seems to have overtaken his actual football career in a lot of people's eyes is just a horrible, horrible thing for me. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to redress that balance. People, the next time you see John Barnes somewhere, Don't ask him to do the rap. Ask him about that dribble against QPR. Ask him about that bicycle kick against Blackburn. Ask him about literally any of the amazing things he did on a football pitch, please.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was here, Steve, like a year and a half.
Yeah, 2019 fall.
And that's all I heard was people going, can you do a bit of that rap? Not like, when you scored that brilliant goal. There was nothing like that. And I was just like,
I mean,
first time you're seeing Barnes, and that's the first thing you ask him. Like, no.
I mean, to be honest, I'm more likely to ask him to drop kick the Lucas ball into the bin than I am to do that bleeding rap, because I did try to do that after the advert quite a few times and never managed it. So I want to know if he did it for real or if it was camera trickery.
That'll be a good question for him. Yeah. And also, well, my next question was who was the player on your wall? Obviously, John Barnes. Then.
Yeah, although it's funny because my sister, who is a Leeds fan, yeah,
wow,
we were all
Spurs.
We were all allowed to pick, basically. My sister, she picked Leeds later, so she picked Leeds just as they were winning, just before they started to get good. So she's claiming them basically, but like Barry Speed, Gary McAllister, that Leeds midfield of the early 90s, that was kind of what hooked her in. But because she also had magazines like Smash Hits and what have you like that, they'd have the pullouts, and around that era, Liverpool players started to come into those kind of magazines. So Jamie Redknapp, Patrick Berger would sometimes turn up in her magazine, and I actually stole the Jamie Redknapp poster from her wall and put it on mine because I was like, you can't have that. Like, you're not allowed. He's ours. But yeah, Jamie Redknapp was on there as well. But I don't know, at that stage in my life, it was more about collecting books and stuff. Like, I wasn't a massive posters guy until I got into music a little bit later. That's when the posters came. But for football, it was about kits, it was about balls, and it was about books. That's what I was kind of into because, again, we did a lot of our football. We'd watch it, but we'd always play it, and it would be me, my dad, and my sister, and we would always play. Like literally every weekend, we'd find a park and we'd just play until we were all tired. I'm pretty sure it was a tactic. My dad saying, "I can't handle you guys, so I'm going to knacker you out, and then you'll sleep," and it seemed to work. But obviously, when you're watching football and you're seeing your team do things, and then you're out playing football, you're trying to be like someone. So, I mean, I did always want to be like Barnes, but it became obvious quite early on that that was not possible. I didn't quite have the same dribbling skills, but I had the passing ability of Jamie Redknapp. So he kind of started to come into my mind towards that time as well. Yeah,
I always remember, playing in my back garden, like by myself, a whole match by myself, and my mother just looking out the window, just going,
"What's he doing?"
As you do, you talk to yourself, you slide on the floor and go, "Yeah, I just scored the winner." And my mum was just like, "You're crackers, mate."
Like, when I think back now, some of the things I did in the name of football, it's wild. Like, we at school, it was a strange situation because there was 2 playgrounds and there was only one you could have all sports on. The other one was the grand playground for everybody, and so you didn't want to have people playing football, elbowing people, all that kind of stuff. So we weren't allowed balls. So we used bottle caps. And we had a bottle cap tournament, like literally an entire World Cup with teams picked and so like matches, fixtures, the works. And we'd be working out in school, like, okay, who's playing who today, blah, 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 blah. And we got so serious about it. And we were literally playing with a bottle cap this big. And the goals were, it was like one of those benches, one of those wooden benches, and it has 2 struts, the struts with a goal. So the goal was like this high off the floor, and you were playing with a bottle cap. And we took it seriously. I mean, it was for us, that was football. It was like wherever you can squeeze it into your life, we did.
Yeah, for school with me, you weren't allowed to play with a football in the yard. So we played with tennis balls. Yeah, there was like at least 20, 30 tennis balls going around. But yeah.
Well, we weren't even allowed that, because I'm pretty sure someone did try once and that didn't last very long. I think a window might have got involved. And that was the beauty of the bottle cap, is that obviously everything above knee high was taken out of the equation. So there was no testing, there was no headers. It was all about foot speed, and all about, accuracy, as much as you could be accurate with an actual bottle cap. But yeah, it's strange how those little bits that you don't even think about start to shape the way you engage with football later on. So like the parts that I like, particularly, like I say, skills, passing, those kind of things, would have all been useful in that game.
Yeah, that's crazy. Bottle caps, Jesus. Next, you'll be telling me you went to school, uphill in the snow.
No, well, see, this is the laugh, is that from that school, I went to a grammar school after that. And although grammar schools occupy a certain place in most people's mind, this was like a state grammar school. Like, this wasn't a fee-paying grammar school. It was a grammar school that didn't do football. They did rugby and cricket and athletics. And then we did hockey and cross-country. And we did no football. And as you can imagine, that was quite the shock when I realised that's what was going on. But as always, we found a way. we basically bullied them into doing. By the time we got to year 10, we were doing football. And that's just from us persistently saying, come on, no one wants to do this hockey stuff. Come on, let's play football. And yeah, eventually we got our way, which is awesome.
So when was your first time that you went through those Shankly gates for your first Anfield match?
Wow, that was a long time later. It was 2003. Yes, 2003. It was a Worthington Cup match against Southampton. I was at university by this point. My best friend from home, he went to uni in Liverpool, whereas I was in Stoke. So I kind of went to visit him. We decided to get tickets for the game. This was the era where there was a McDonald's on the cup. I always tell the story because it's the most vivid thing I remember aside from the actual football. And I was completely unaware that was the case. So I got there and I was just like, huh? What? Like, everything you heard about the cup being this magical place, swaying bodies, community, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's these big golden arches down the side there, and you're like, how does that work? But I got over that quite quickly. I was so excited to be on the cup. I remember, because this was in the days where you could call the club to get a ticket for certain games, because obviously this was a year we actually went on to win the Worthington Cup, but 2002-03 season, probably not a vintage in a lot of people's minds. So a League Cup game at that point is not necessarily going to have everyone flocking. And it wasn't full. I remember that much. It wasn't full. But they asked me where I wanted to sit on the phone. I'm like, well, obviously the cup. And they were like, yeah, sure, we can give you 2 ticks on the cup. I was just like, oh. And then, all the cliches are true. Like, watching football on TV does not prepare you for the dimensions of a pitch. I always thought it's bigger than it is. And then you get there and you're like, it's big? But in terms of when you see someone playing a 50-yard ball on TV, you think, oh, goalkeeper making a goal kick. You think, wow, could I kick it that far? And then you get there and you're like, well, yes, obviously I can kick it that far. And it's just a very different thing, the dimensions of a pitch in front of you, as opposed to the way that the cameras perceive it. And I was kind of obsessing over that part for a lot of the game. Differences. And the ability to be able to watch players who aren't on screen. Like I could just decide to watch Patrick Berger for the whole game. And I almost did, because, I think he scored a free kick that night. And he was the only one who looked like he actually cared about winning the game. Yeah, it was one of those kind of games. But yeah, just the novelty of being able to be like, I decide what I want to watch. It's like I wasn't even perceiving the idea that there was a difference until I got there and I saw it. But yeah, Liverpool won. I thankfully had quite a good record at Anfield in terms. I wouldn't go there every week. Obviously, when I moved to the city, I'll go there a little bit more regularly. But I didn't see Liverpool lose at Anfield till 2014. That's 11 years. I was quite proud of that record as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that watch Liverpool on the telly That's why I hear from a few people, they talk about Hendo. They don't think he does too much. It's like, well, if you were there at Anfield, you can actually see what the lad does. And also, I think with during COVID as well, with no fans, you could hear him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
People could hear him, what he actually brings to this team. Yeah, I just like, which I normally do once or twice, have a few arguments on Twitter about, should Hendo be given, a 3-year contract? I'm like, yes, of course. Well, I don't think he should because he doesn't do anything. I'm like, well, you obviously don't watch football, or football's not for you. Yeah, it's just bizarre.
It is. And I never liked doing the whole, those who go to the game are always going to be better or more important in terms of their opinion than those who don't, because I've been to the game, I've heard some absolute wham chatted by some of the people around me, but it does give you a different perspective, like I say. And I think there's also a little bit in terms of modern football as well, that too much of it has just been reduced to numbers, to pure stats. So whenever someone is trying to argue who's better than whom, the numbers always lead the day. And that's not really how it works, because as you say, there are so many intangibles about a football team, a football squad, football season that don't show up on those sheets but are so important. And you can tell by the way that people involved talk about them. Like Henderson being a grand example, Genie One album's another. For those people who said, oh yeah, I don't know what he does, listen to his teammates. They'll tell you. Like, they will tell you exactly what he does. And you can never all get in it. No one's ever all going to agree on anybody. And I don't think we really should to a certain extent. But yeah, you can almost tell how someone experiences a game by how they talk.
No, exactly. I'm going to bring Steve in now. He's been a bit quiet.
Oh, man, just enjoying the conversation. Hey, Mo, thanks for coming on this morning. Appreciate you.
No worries.
It's when you were talking about how you got to Liverpool, my exact same story, watching over here in the States, mid-90s, not too many games were on the telly, right? There's Liverpool, there's John Barnes. That's the team for me, so hearing your story and equating it back to mine, and like how fortunate it was that he was still playing at that time, because who knows what would have happened if he wouldn't have been on there. For me, personally,
there are a generation of Barnes babies, like 100%. Like, I've had this conversation with so many people, and I don't know whether or not it was just what he represented beyond the fact that obviously he was a black man playing for Liverpool, right, and he was a superstar, and there weren't many of those around at that point. And it was a badge of honor in that respect. It was someone who you looked for. But at the same time, I think the way he played, even in the 90s when he kind of went a bit deeper and was just kind of dictating play, there was just something about him. There was a purpose. And it was like, yeah, if I could play it, I'd want to play like that guy. And as obviously in the 90s as well, there were a few other teams who had guys who, some people might say had that air about them. But for us, I think we needed it to be him. I think we needed it to be someone who had that mix of being from somewhere else, but also being English. And I think that was important for us, me here in particular, because that kind of dual nationality it wasn't really a conversation back then, but the way we think about it now, obviously lots has changed, thankfully.
People kind of forget that he was a generational player, not just for Liverpool, but for all of football in England. The way he played, the charisma he had and the power and the pace combined, that was something that really had not been seen before prior to him coming out to, breaking out.
No, and I felt for him, obviously looking back on it now, particularly when it came to international football, it was like people didn't seem to understand that Liverpool it was easy to play that way for Liverpool than it was for England, because he had better teammates, starters, but it was almost like the knowledge of what he could do became the stick to beat him with when he couldn't do it or didn't do it. And obviously I felt protective for him because he was ours, but I wanted people to just be able to say, look, it doesn't matter what he does there. Just look at him doing this here. And again, it was one thing where you hear players talk about him and they will all talk about the actual awe that they had when they met him. Even like all the younger Liverpool players, but other players as well, his contemporaries of that era, they all make sure that they all rate him as high as they can. And you're right, there wasn't really anyone like that at that time. There'd been players who'd kind of had bits of it, like my dad talks about Laurie Cunningham a lot, but obviously his career unfortunately got cut short. But he was someone who could have had the talent to be that way, but again, there were some significant barriers in his way in terms of achieving the highest level. But as time went by, more people came through, those things got easier. And I think John was the right time for our generation to just explode.
You know, I want to go on the record that I helped organize bringing him here to Austin, for our event. And I did not ask him to do the rap. So I want everybody to know that. And it may have been because I was so pissed by the end of the night that I didn't even know my own name. So, but I did not ask him to do the rap. So there it is.
I mean, if you speak to some people, he doesn't really need to be asked. So the fact that he didn't do it is definitely a win. It means that there was enough going on in Austin to keep him occupied. So you did good.
Oh yeah. Well, he's very verbose. He has so many things that he could talk about, and he just kind of let it free flow. And he's such a great conversationalist and brings topics to the forefront that you don't necessarily want to talk about sometimes, but they need to be spoken about.
Well, this is it as well. Like, he's the bravery that he showed in his career continues. And it's difficult sometimes because I can sit here hand on heart and say I don't agree with absolutely everything he said. But the fact is that there are people who are listening to him say these things who wouldn't be willing to listen and appreciate it from a lot of other people. So I am pleased that he is continuing to speak on these things because it's bringing conversations forward, bringing understanding forward, and yeah, hopefully it's going to make a difference at some point.
Yeah. Well, this portion of our John Barnes fan club is over. Let's get back to Mo Stewart. So let's get back to how you got into the journalism profession.
Well, again, it was something that I'd always wanted to do that. Like when I was younger, once I realized I couldn't make a career as a footballer, the next one on the rank was commentator because I enjoyed doing that. So I'd always pretend to be the commentator, and to the point where I'd annoy everybody in my family because I would commentate on like non-football things. Like I'd commentate on dinner. Like it's like, oh, I'm not sure there's many potatoes left. Is it going to be a battle for the last roasty? Yeah, that kind of thing, and annoying people. But over the years with the school, again, writing was something that I found I was quite good at. So I was kind of directed towards this as being a potential. I had a really good teacher called Mr. Jeffries, who, when I was 15, he took me with him when he was doing some work for the BBC. He was, in those days, I don't know if you remember Grandstand Daz, where they'd have the reporters out at all different games and they'd have call-ins about match reports and stuff like that. He was one of those people. So he was doing a match report. It was Stevenage against Dover Athletic. And he was doing the match report. So he was working as a BBC journalist. He took me along. We went along into the media lounge. I remember the sandwiches and stuff like that. And I was shocked by the fact that essentially what it was is him standing in the corridor, looking at the game on the phone. And that was the report. And I was just like, wow. Like, I thought it was a lot more glamorous than that. But it whetted my appetite for sure. I was like, yeah, I could do this kind of stuff. And over the years, as I say, I got better, writing. So I started wanting to do more media style stuff. At that point, media studies as a national subject was still kind of narrow. It hadn't expanded into different subgenres. So my degree gave me a chance to do a little bit of everything. So I did some radio work, I did some journalist work, I did some TV production, and I kind of got a feel for all of them and realized that I could do bits of all of them. So that's where I started doing radio stuff, which is what led to me doing DJing, which we'll come on to in a bit. And that was also where I really started thinking about how I could go about getting into writing, and getting into sports writing. But it didn't really happen for me in that way. By this point, music, as I say, had come into my life as well. And it looked like I was getting more success in that world than in sports. So I kind of took it that way. I did some music writing, did some reviewing, did that for quite a few years, did some more radio stuff. And it was only really in the last 5 years that I've come back to sports journalism. And that was, again, the most like my introduction to the Anfield Rap is the most random story you could ever imagine. That was what got me back into this world. That's what got people listening to me talk about football, me realizing that my voice and my opinion seemed to carry some weight, and then thinking, okay, let's go with this then.
So when you tell us about your time, we've had a lot of the Anfield Rap guys on here and ladies, let me not forget. But tell us about your experiences there. They seem to, when they started, 2010 around there, and now they've really become kind of an official outlet for most Liverpool fans, right? So kind of share your experiences working there with those guys and girls.
Well, I mean, I started as a subscriber. I found out about it through a friend of mine who I was DJing, and he was working behind the bar, and he was talking about it. We used to talk about Liverpool in general. He told me about it. So I subscribed. This is when they were doing stuff in Park Street way back in like 2012 or something. And I enjoyed it because, again, there's something about living in Liverpool that lets you kind of understand Scousers in a different way. So hearing Scousers talk about Liverpool Football Club gave me a greater understanding about the game, because it's slightly different here in terms of where it sits within society, very much so, but also just what's important. Going back to what I was saying before about me and my dad, the things that are important, the way you play, the way you conduct yourself, it's kind of been turned into the whole this means more thing, but the reality of that is like, we know what's important, we know what our values are. And I kind of drew that from the show. So I really enjoyed it. And obviously they're funny people. But I was just a subscriber. And then my housemate at the time was working in a bar in Liverpool, motel. And he's like, they need a DJ. He knew I was a DJ. He was like, come in, play one night a week. So I came in, played one night a week. And some of the guys from the Anfield Rap would come in because motel was owned by Paul Senior, which I didn't know at the time. And they used to record above the Chinese restaurant that was next door. So you'd basically enter the hotel, do a left, go up their stairs and above their room. And then there was this little room that they recorded. So every now and then, some of them would come in on the way to record a show. So I started chatting with them, get to know them a little bit better. And then they were doing the show called The Rider, which is all about music. So they're like, oh, well, you should come on our music show. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come and do that a little bit. And then John and Neil were planning to start DJing in Motel, which to me now, knowing them, is still wild. And so they were like, we need help. We could do some DJ advice. So maybe that's what you should do on the show. So on The Rider from there on, I'd come on as like the DJ consultant. And so when they'd ask me about things that happen in bars when you're a DJ, I'd tell them and try to guide them through that. And then after about 6 months of that, I think Neil just randomly said, are you a Liverpool fan? And I was like, yes, Neil. Yes, I am. It's like, do you want to come on one of our football shows? And I was like, yes, Neil. Yes, I do. And yeah, that was 5 years ago. And the rest is history.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, those guys are so good, and they've been, good supporters of us over these 100 episodes that we're about to do. So I know Darren's itching to talk about music with you and DJing, but I have one more question. You had a recent article, and I know this is something that we kind of joke about all the time, about Mbappe coming to Liverpool, right? And the relationship of LeBron James and Nike and how all that fits in. Obviously, this transfer window is not closed, and half the people want Mbappe. The other half are like, what kind of drugs are you on? That will never happen. So take us over that, maybe just a brief review of the article for those that haven't read it, and then your thoughts even now?
Well, it started from something someone else said on a podcast, but it's like my wheels working. So Ian McGarry on his Transfer Window podcast said that he believes FSG are willing to look at Mbappe as a project in terms of if he runs down his contract, becomes a free transfer, but they will give him a release clause which allows him to still move to Madrid in the future at a time that suits both parties. So essentially what that means is he'll be selling a short-term deal with Liverpool with the knowledge that he would eventually leave. And what that would mean for Liverpool in terms of, is it worthwhile having a rental of a player, even of that good quality? And I kind of explored the reasons why that might be an idea. Again, thinking about Kylian Mbappe, thinking about the way that he's connected, the way that he's inspired by a lot of NBA stars, and the way a lot of football players are at the moment, the way those conversations go about control. And then obviously the fact that LeBron James is connected to Liverpool already, and that he was at the forefront of that when it came to the NBA in terms of moving the needle back towards players and away from the teams having the power. So if you think about obviously the decision in 2010, and then when he went to the Cavs and he would sign 1-year deals to kind of keep ownership on their toes, make sure they did what he wanted. And maybe thinking about how that is the vehicle for control that the European footballers start to look at, looking at obviously things that happen with Lionel Messi and things like that. The idea of the 5 to 6 year deals of Liverpool in particular were so good at doing, and that kind of security not really working in the future. And when you think about some of the deals we've seen recently this summer, players who are on long deals, like Harry Kane, doesn't really suit the player anymore because now he's tied in and he can't really move, and club can't afford him if he's still got that much left on his deal. So it's one of those situations where it might not necessarily be something FSG are looking at, but within their world, it makes sense. Because at the moment, we are behind Real Madrid in the queue for Mbappe. There's no denying that. So we may have to get creative in order to do it. He loves Jurgen Klopp. That much is not up for debate. Anybody can see from his comments and from the rumored conversations to have had, that connection is real. So I think he would be more willing to go to Liverpool than a lot of people would think. I think from Klopp's perspective, what he would hope is that once he's in the building, he can persuade him to stay a little longer. But the thing with this is that because it's kind of a radical way of doing things, it's instantly going to be shot down by a lot of people. However, everything new starts somewhere.
Yeah.
So it could be one of those things where a deal like this looks crazy. It looks, why would Liverpool give up the opportunity? I mean, if you sign a 2-year deal, you can go to Real Madrid for free, still get another massive signing on bonus. Liverpool haven't really got anything more out of them. But as I said, if you get him in the building, if you have success, therefore he wants to do right by the club, you might see something like whereby he'll sign an extra year extension, just protecting his transfer value, and say, okay, I'm signing a year extension. I still want to go now, but I'm going to force Real Madrid to give you some money as well as give me some money. Again, it's pontificating, but it's within a world of things that make sense. And the connection between basketball players and football players is something that I've been kind of observing for quite a while over the last 2 to 3 years, because I'm a big fan of both games and see them being pictured together. You think, I wonder what they're talking about. And with LeBron in particular, his connection with FSG is really interesting to me because he's going to want to be an owner of an NBA team. He said it so many times. His connection with FSG is his path to becoming an NBA owner. They're owners of the Red Sox. He's already a part owner of FSG. So he wants that relationship to grow in order to get where he wants to be. And if he can help with this deal, trust me, Tom Werner is going to be very, very happy with him.
You know, I had conversations initially when LeBron James became a 10% owner. You know, people just minimized it. You shouldn't minimize him. He and Maverick Carter have built a business conglomerate that you just see a sometimes it's a black NBA player. They don't know what they're talking about. The shut up and dribble crowd, things like that. And like you have to look at what they've accomplished without really any professional training, the business that they've built over the years, and now the connections that they have throughout the whole media world and sports world. But don't minimize what they bring to the table. You don't look at it just a number.
I think you're right. And I think that LeBron is such a mold breaker in a lot of ways that people might not necessarily be aware of the things he's doing. I mean, like the I Promise School is an incredible institution and really kind of makes good on what most people who have philanthropy, I don't know the worst way to say that word, philanthropic? I don't know. Anyway, he want to give things to people. That's kind of like the real legacy, be able to give and keep giving and build for forever. And he's doing the same with sports. He's doing the same with entertainment. Every deal he's made has increased. Like he put in £6.5 million for a 2% stake in Liverpool in 2011. That stake is now worth £85 million. Like he makes money every time he tries to make money. So having someone like that on your side is never a bad thing.
Nope.
I
agree.
Do you think, if Mbappe does come, that's the end of the front three?
This is also the question. I do think, I think we're on the kind of farewell tour of the front three already, to be honest with you. But that doesn't mean to say they're all gone. I think it may just be one.
Yeah.
I fear it may be Firmino. I mean, I say I fear because I love him, but logic dictates of the three of them, he's the only one who we haven't heard anything about new contracts yet. But that would make sense. The rumors have been up to this point that it would only be as a replacement for Salah that we'd be going after Mbappe. I can see a world where we try to put them together. I really can. Because if you look at it from the perspective of stars, there is a distinctive age gap between the two of them. So while Mo Salah will still always be Mo Salah as long as he plays for Liverpool because of what he's done, Mbappe will be the coming guy. So the kind of relationship that he has with Neymar and PSG at the moment would be similar to how I could see it working for the two of them in Liverpool. So I don't think in terms of ego and stuff like that, it would be too much of an issue. I think Liverpool need to do right by Salah in this current contract negotiations. That's going to be the crux of it. If Liverpool make Salah go below what he wanted to by a significant amount and then go and do a deal with Mbappe that's beyond that, that's a problem. I think how Liverpool try to navigate those two things is key to this. I think they can do it. I really do think they can do it. And whether that means that Salah gets more than they want to give him, I don't know. I think it's really hard to argue against giving him what he wants.
Yeah, the numbers are there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's not even just the numbers for goals and for assists, but numbers for games. He is always there, available to play on the pitch. That is such a big thing. It's such a load off. If basically Klopp has to make a decision on 10 players for every game rather than 11 because he's always there. And the opponents know that as well. And so having that psychological boost, I mean, we've all seen the same thing with Virgil van Dijk having an impact, the difference it makes, not just to him, not just to his teammates, but to the opponents. Mo Salah is in that bracket as well.
Yeah, I say just give him a suitcase full of cash. Whatever he wants, keys to the city, I don't care, because for a one season wonder, he's done amazing.
Give him the borough of St. Michael's. It's lovely over there. I'm sure everyone over there will be sad with it.
He's just an incredible player, and he just seems like an incredible human being as well.
Yeah, he does. And I think those are the things that sometimes get lost, because I did a piece for Liverpool.com talking about why I would pick Trent over him as captain. And a lot of people saw that as me saying that he wouldn't be a good captain. No, I think Trent would be the perfect choice for a lot of reasons I put in the piece. But Salah would be really good too. Salah is inspirational amongst his teammates. His spirit, his will to win really is important. I mean, some people kind of make a joke out of the never give up t-shirts from Liverpool after the game when he wasn't playing and he turned up in a never give up t-shirt. Like, that wasn't an accident. He knew the effect it would have on everybody, and he wanted to be able to affect the game even though he couldn't play. There's a piece come out just today talking about how he's become a mentor to some of the younger forwards over the course of pre-season for Harvey Elliott and Kai Gordon. So he cares about the club. He cares about the success of the club as well as the success of Mo Salah. And I think sometimes people look at his play on the pitch. They look at the fact he'll sometimes be able to do big advertising deals and things like that. The ideas, the interviews with Marker and all that kind of thing. I think, oh, this guy's just another superstar who only cares about himself. And once he's gone, he wouldn't look back. Not one bit of it, not with this guy.
Yeah, I read some rumours that he was actually waiting on Hendo to sign, and because this is what I mean. We go back to the Hendo thing. Every player at Liverpool respects Henderson so much. He's another one on and off the pitch. He's a professional.
I think he goes beyond just the guys in the dressing room. I think one of the things that I've always enjoyed is that every player who leaves Liverpool mentions him in their goodbye note. Every single one. Sometimes they'll even show the special things that he's done for them once they've left. And they don't need to do that. They don't need to do that. And yet they feel compelled to do it because of how important he was to them in that space. And when you've got someone like that in your building, you keep hold of him. Like we spoke about in previous years, Steven Gerrard, how he left, the fact that it was kind of unsatisfactory that he went and played in America and then started his coaching. And it would have been brilliant if he could have just gone straight into the under-18s and started and stayed within the building. People have spoken a lot about Milner within the same sentence. Henderson is the one for me. Honestly, I want Henderson to be the new Ronnie Moran. I want him to be leaving this club when he's greyer than me. And maybe not even leave. He can do that job. He can do it.
Yeah, I would love to see him go into coaching, right after. Not be a pundit, just get your head down and go into coaching, because you even saw during the Euros, Jack Grealish teaching a lad that just got 100 million, transfer how to tie a tie. I mean, but it's those little things that count, for the younger player. And I'm sure, if we interviewed Harvey Elliott, he would probably tell you the same thing about Henderson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Trent, just talk to Trent about it. And for a lot of those times with England, they were the only two Liverpool lads, because obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain, Joe Gomez has been injured, Milner's retired. So a lot of the time it was, particularly when Trent was still new to the tournament, like the World Cup in 2018, it was his first tournament away. He only played one game, so he probably would have been sitting around annoyed a lot of the time. He had Henderson there to keep him going, to keep him ticking over. He's spoken about that recently. And those things are just natural to him. It's not like, oh, I've got to make sure that I do this and I do that and I do that. He just does it because that's what he does, because that's the kind of man he is. That's what he's been brought up to be. And when someone can be that way without having to force it, he can really connect with everybody, because everyone just sees the person being themselves. So again, I would give him what he wants. And I think his style of leadership needs to be there, because if there's a point in the future where we don't have Jurgen Klopp, if you've still got Jordan Henderson, then a lot of that spirit will remain.
Yeah, I think it really touched a lot of people, when he went straight to his dad after the Champions League final. I mean, if you've got a heart, you cried. I know I did. Yeah. Like a baby.
And he kind of reminded you of his journey at the moment as well, because obviously his dad had been ill recently, and so there was probably a point in his mind where he was thinking, if I get this moment, he might not be here to see it. So when he was, it was kind of like a relief on both levels. But you do think about not just how close he came to leaving the club, but the disrespect that has followed him pretty much his entire Liverpool career for different reasons. And one thing I always remember and I'll always love him for is that the succession planning, when you've had a big star, is so hard. Every team struggles with it, whether it's a big manager, whether it's a big player. If you've had one guy who is the guy, once he's gone, there's a vacuum. And if not everybody is on the same page of who the new leader is, it can lead to absolute chaos. But the way that John Henderson has been able to take over from Steven Gerrard is remarkable. It really is, because he was able to learn under Steven, and he was able to grow the things that he knew that he would need at Steven's feet. And he was able to deal with everything that he knew would come at him for being not Steven Gerrard. And he didn't care. He knew, he got on with what he had to get on with. And he will always have my ultimate respect.
Yeah, to the day I die, I will say this. If Henderson wouldn't have got red carded against Man City that season, I believe we would have won the league. Hands down.
Yeah. And the only reason he got that red card is because the pass to him was terrible.
Yeah.
So he shouldn't even feel bad about that.
We were this close.
Yeah.
Well, now is my time to talk music. I know you're on Twitter and you got everybody to put in their albums. How far are you on that?
Today's day 59.
Wow.
And I mean, it was one of those things, like, it started as a joke because I was with my girlfriend on the way. We were on a trip back up the country, and she always listens to shuffle in the car. She tells me, definitely only in the car. And it kind of drives me mad sometimes because I get into the mood for something and then it's a complete change. And I'm just like, you never think about the musicians and the way that they intend to make this music and the way that they intend us to hear this music. It's meant to be a full body of work. So we got into this argument. And then I just put on Twitter because, I mean, I do sometimes use my followers to win arguments in my relationship. I probably shouldn't, but sometimes it helps. So I just basically put out there, like, for people, examples of albums that they listen to all the way through. That's a body of work. And then by the time I got home from this trip, I looked at my phone. I was like, oh. So I was thinking, okay, this many people have kind of put their thoughts into it. And I'm always the kind of person who wants to listen to music. I listen to music anyway. Mm-hmm. So this kind of gave me the idea of thinking, oh, there's some here that I know, but I've never actually listened to. So maybe I should just listen to all of these. And so now I'm listening to all of them. And it's been brilliant. It really has. Like, I'm not going to lie, there's been a couple where after track 2, I'm like, this might be a test. But there's genuinely been some albums that I've known, that I thought I've known, that I've listened to again and given them the proper amount of attention that they deserve and been really surprised and been like, wow, there's more going on. Like a couple of days ago, Quadrophenia. I've watched that film loads of times. I quote lines from that film. I've never listened to the album all the way through, not once. And I listened to it and I was just like, wow. Like, you forget, again, The Who are one of those bands, everyone kind of knows the history of them. Everyone kind of knows the big hits. You know, like the Rolls Royce into the pool and like the windmill and the blowing of speakers. But as a foursome, as actual musicians that work together, like, I got a whole new respect for them after listening to that album because it's really the intricacies of it. And that's kind of what I wanted to do it for, because I want to learn more about music. I'm always wanting to learn more about music. It's just the way I approach it.
Yeah, a lot of people always ask me because, I DJ house music as well. Is that all you listen to? I'm like, good God, no. Obviously,
No, I mean,
you practice your sets, you know,
yeah.
and you go out and play in the club. You don't want to hear that when you come home. You don't first thing in the morning. You don't want to hear bang, 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 bang. You know,
It's funny. You know what I do more often than not when I'm on the way home from DJing. I'm DJing tonight, so I'll probably do it tonight. The songs that I intended to play but didn't, for whatever reason. So sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, I've not heard that in a while. Let me put that over there in the kind of park that I enjoy." When the appropriate moment comes, I'll put that in. But then the appropriate moment didn't come. Another group come in, they want to go in another direction, I go in another direction. Because that's really when I'm DJing, the places that I play, it's more about a kind of I react to what they're doing and then kind of direct them. I allow them to direct me rather than me directing them, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can have plans when I get there, but often you have to have those plans and go with what your eyes are telling you, basically. So when I'm going my way home, I'll be like, damn, I didn't get a chance to play that one. So I'll listen to it. I just almost like to cleanse myself. It's like, okay, yes, that song is a good song. We got to play it. And almost like reminding myself for next time. It's like, you have to play it next time. And I always do try to find the place. But yeah, again, with music, the things that you like aren't always necessarily the things that are right for the moment where you're playing. And again, maybe it's with maturity, maybe it's just the lack of ego. I found it easier to be like, okay, I'll save this. Like, I don't need to impress you with my fancy, obscure music. I'll impress you by keeping you on the dance floor for 3 hours straight and not allowing you to leave.
Oh, that's the job of a DJ, isn't it? I mean, if you have an empty dance floor, you're doing something wrong.
Well, I mean, pre-COVID, for sure. Yeah. It's been interesting. I've had a couple of gigs early on, in particular, a couple of gigs where people had to stay seated, and it kind of goes against my instincts because, like, at first I thought, "Oh, this is cool. Maybe I can play some of those more, I don't know, chilled or down-tempo songs that I don't really think work in a normal sphere." But you need to know the reaction of people. You need to know how they feel, and if they're all just sitting down talking, like, so I'll play that song and be like, "Oh, how's this going down?" And I'm like, "Oh, can't tell." So as soon as people started being allowed to dance again, honestly, it's made my life so much easier. I can now read crowds again, and yeah, it's just a very different experience.
How was that first time? You know, when everybody was allowed back.
It was. I mean, it's strange because the setup of where I'm at it's not like a DJ booth. It's just kind of two big tables. So people will approach me, and I should say at this point in the proceedings, I was still in and out of hospital. I was dealing with like a medical thing, so I was having to be extra careful in terms of protecting myself from actual COVID because I knew I was having to go into NHS buildings every other day. So I did have my mask on, and I was kind of standing back. So people would come in and be like, "Oh, really enthusiastic, come on," and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, great." Thanks. I started getting less annoyed at people holding up their phone asking for requests because that used to annoy me, but now it's like, thank you. But yeah, you get, as with everything, you get used to the weirdness, and then once you start clicking, you forget about it. So the first time you play a big song, everyone goes, "Hey!" and start dancing. You forget about all this stuff. It just becomes fun again.
How come the lads did not let you play at the Anfield Rap party?
It's a very good question, Daz.
Yeah.
One I've not yet had a decent answer for.
Oh.
I know. That's to be honest with them. I think I was technically supposed to be doing something else that night, and decided late on I was going to jib it and come to this. So I think that is the case. But there have been a couple of times when I've seen them doing live stuff, and they'll have, oh yeah, well, one of us is going to go on and throw some records down. I'm like, it's literally my job. You have someone in the building who does literally their job. Get me on. But yeah, it'll happen one day. I mean, once the kind of boss night took over, and it did take over for good reason, then the experience became very different. Obviously, like Jamie or a Kieran are much more likely to get the crowd going than me standing there playing a few records. But if there's space for that at some point, do it. Like at any point I'm able to combine my two loves, then I want to do it. Definitely.
That's what I mean. Like music and football just go hand in hand, you know. As a rocker or a mod, by the way.
Ooh. In terms of style, mod. In terms of music, I can take a little bit from both. I'm not gonna put anyone off from either. I mean, I do. There is that kind of like early Who kind of era. Like I really love that kind of music. Like almost partly because of how they recorded it. That kind of just got a certain rush to it that just kind of gives you that energy. And then with rock, sometimes like the stuff I like varies. So like sometimes I'll like a full-on like punk rattle, and sometimes I want a bit of bluesy stodge, like Led Zeppelin, for example. I love it. Like
my dad was a Teddy boy.
Oh really?
Yeah, you know, in the early like 80s, I was a mod. So we clashed on a lot of things, but I'm the same as you. I like rock as well. You know, I like how the mods dress, obviously, you know, the Fred Perrys and all that, because they just look smart. Rockers just look smelly.
Well, I mean, I appreciated the way mods dressed. I wasn't sure I was able to reach that level myself because as I felt like I was a lot more of a messy dresser. Like back then, it was basically band t-shirts and baggy trousers. Like that was my gear. And sometimes to my own detriment, I didn't realize that it was like, you know, going out dressed like a mashed up paper bag is not necessarily going to do you very well. But you get older, you realize these things.
You're a man of many t-shirts.
Oh yeah, that's not an accident.
Who's one of your best?
Oh,
well, ones.
Well, they're always good. To be honest, my favorite one is Tribe Called Quest t-shirt I got, and it was one of those where I was on their mailing list, and they had, we're having a day, we've got 20% off all of our merch. So I was like, oh, let me have a look. And Award Tour by Tribe Called Quest is one of my favorite songs. And it's basically the t-shirt has got some of the lyrics of it on it. And part of the lyrics is it names different places. So then it's got like the different places. But then there's also like a picture of Q-Tip and it's just orange, it's white. It's just the way it just suits me. It suits me perfectly. And I've had it for years and it still fits. So that gives it another big thumbs up. But yeah, it's probably my favorite. I've had some good ones like the Pickle Rick. That's one always gets, like, whenever I wear that on an Anfield Rap show, there's always at least one person in the comments who has to shout out the Pickle Rick. So I do wear that quite a lot. But yeah, again, I'm not someone who enjoys shopping. Like, I'm not going to lie. There's lots of other things I could rather do, unless it's for music. That's a very different beast. But so cool t-shirts is easy for me. And now that people know that's what I'm into, like a lot of my family are like, well, what can we get them for Christmas? I'll just get the t-shirt. We sound that. I'm like, yeah, I will.
One last musical question. If you could put a band together with any artist from classical to now, who would those like 4 or 5 people be?
Oh, damn. That is a tough one. Okay. I would have to pick straight off the bat Josh Homme from the Queens of Stone Age. He has to sing because his voice is cool as hell, and I couldn't match him. I think I'd probably have Questlove on drums, because not only can he hold a beat amazingly, but he can help with production, he can help with arrangements, he can do lots of things. So he would just be worth having in the building anyway. Is this alive or dead, by the way?
We're recording.
Yeah, just recording, yeah.
Okay. So if I can have people who are no longer with us, then I'm picking Prince. And I feel like I should pick Prince anyway, because, you know, even if he's just going through his old tapes, we'll find enough stuff to go on.
Just
so,
okay. Alone.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, I wouldn't have to worry about the outfits because he can take care of all that stuff. So we got, okay, right, who else do I need? So I need, St. Vincent. St. Vincent's going to be my guitarist because not only do I love the way she plays, I love the way her mind works. I love her approach to music. There's a lot of it approaches about sometimes not being scared to mess things up. Like genuinely just being like, okay, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, it might still sound cool anyway. I like that approach to music. I don't like when people are scared to fail. So I'd have her in the mix. So that's what. Okay, so that's four. Yeah, there you go. Super group.
What's the band's name?
I think the band's name is going to be because you can look at that word and you can interpret it in many different ways. You can be like, damn these people to hell for this horrible music, or damn. So yeah, just damn.
Yeah, I could see Prince, well, you know, before he passed away in a corner, you know, on a sewing machine, getting all the outfits together.
Exactly. I mean, he could have a field day with that as well, couldn't he? Just calling it damn. Like,
yeah, that was. It's been a rough, you know, couple of years. David Bowie passing, George Michael, you know, Prince. It's bizarre, you know. Grew up with all three of them, and then can't believe they're not here anymore. You know.
No, I don't know if you've seen the documentary about David Bowie, about what he did, his last album, and the play that he did when he knew that he was dying. It's like, oh, okay. I've got to do this now then. And we kind of know him as being this person who's always working, he's always got plenty of ideas. But to basically push himself to do that at that point in his life when he knew that he didn't have much more time, it's incredible to me. Like, I think there's so many other things I'd be thinking about if I had like a year and a half to live. But he's like, no, despite the fact I've got all of this art out there in the world in existence, still need more. And it's just like, you can't really ask more than that. He is his work so much. I love it.
It's an incredible album as well.
It really is.
But for him to, you know, keep it quiet is cancer as well. And that, you know, that's the sort of man he was. So your hats off, you know, to him and his family.
Yeah, you guys referenced Prince. You know, you had your John Barnes poster. I had my Apollonia Vanity on my wall. So,
boy, that's
you know, it's funny. Like my mum, she's always had a soft spot for Prince, and like she always makes the same face whenever I talk about it. She's like, and he's one of those guys where it's like very much like Bowie. Lots of people kind of project their own desires and their own kind of ideal onto him because he can be so many different things. But just a day or just an hour in his presence, just talking about music, listening to how he dissects things, I would give anything for that.
So winding down, how do you think this season is going to play out? Yeah, I know it's a big question, especially. Do you think we'll actually get someone in? I think if we get Shaq sold, I believe we'll bring someone in.
Well, Shaq is going to get sold. Yeah. I think what has happening is that Leon are fanning around, for want of a better phrase, but they aren't going to pull out the deal. They want him. They've made space in their squad for him. It's just about who's going to blink first. Are Leon going to eventually rise to what Liverpool wants evaluation? Or are Liverpool going to be like, okay, fine. You just take him for that amount. Once that space is gone, it becomes interesting because I still think that Liverpool have got a plan for no one coming in. So if no one comes in, this is our plan. And the more Klopp has put together this plan, the more he looks at it, it's like, it's a good plan. I like this. Like, I can see all of the benefits from it. But I do think that now football has started. I know we've only got just over a week left. But now football has started. Now first teams have been decided and players not in first teams have been decided. Those players are going to start getting more antsy. Their agents are going to start ramping up the pressure. More deals are going to happen. And there's going to be more things coming off of that. The question is whether or not that affects anyone on Liverpool's list. Because that's the thing. It's not a case of we need a body, we will see who's there. It's we have a list of people we want to buy. If these are available, we will do business. If not, we got these over here. And I don't know what's going to happen because the transfer window is wild. It is the Wild West. And we've seen it before. People stick the neck out on X or Y or Z and be made to look foolish. I have no real desire to be seen as someone who's right all the time. That's not really what I'm in it for. I'm as much interested to see how it plays out as everyone else. I have my ideas, I have my suspicions, but I'm not wedded to any either of these. So I'm freely admitting that I could be completely wrong. But I think if Liverpool went into this with no more signings, touching wood here, as long as there are no more injuries as well, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm the same. You know, it's the same squad that won the Champions League. It's the same squad that won the Premier League. Last season was one of those things that just never really happens. You know, 3 centre-backs out. I could talk to a City fan all day and they will tell me the same thing, that so what? I'm like, well, you had Laporte out for half a season and you were 18 points behind us. You know, and it's bizarre when even with the pundits last season, I just didn't understand it. They had, why is Liverpool doing not very well? But then when Harry Maguire is out for a month, that's why United aren't doing well. I'm like,
yeah, I think for a certain extent, Liverpool are a weird place in the media landscape because there are people who work in the media who obviously are Liverpool fans or Liverpool former players, and they almost are seen as something to react against. Mm-hmm. So if you're not one of those people, it almost seems like the default is the complete opposite of what they think. But sometimes it's not even that deep. Sometimes it's just short-termism or lazy punditry. People look at the table and say, Liverpool third. They were first the year before. They're going down. They're going backwards. Everyone else has bought players, so they're going to go up. So, ergo, Liverpool down, everyone else up. It's like, okay, if that's what you think.
You know, one of the things that gets me, Mo and Daz, is that when people say, you know, Liverpool has not strengthened. I'm like, well, take the team that walked the league. You add Jota, Thiago, and Konate. You tell me that's not a better team, even though we lost Gini? You can't tell me that's not a stronger team than what we had when we walked the league. So,
that's what I'm saying. There. That's 100% it, Steve. But that's the thing, short-termism. People have forgotten about Konate already because we signed him too early. It's like, Liverpool, I'm going to sign. Like, there was a point where Chelsea hadn't actually signed anyone. There were rumours to sign people. And people were out there on the internet saying, Chelsea are doing all this and Liverpool doing nothing. Liverpool actually bought somebody. He's there. You can see him. And I mean, again, it goes back to what we said at the very beginning about how you look at football, what you think is important. Mm-hmm. And you can really find yourself getting frustrated sometimes. You go down those rabbit holes and see the way other people think and just think, what has gone wrong in your head and why it is that way?
Yeah. And my apologies to Konate for saying his name in a Spanish accent. So,
but you know what?
That Thiago and Jota, Konate.
You know what it is, like. I think pronunciations are really, really tough, because especially for new players. Sometimes until you hear them say it, you're never really sure. Yeah. So I might
unless you're Ian Dark and say everybody, right?
yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like, maybe I don't want to be that sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I might just start calling him Ibu, because that's his nickname around the club. And it's like, you know what? I kind of like that. It's easy. So, yeah.
Have you seen anybody that gets signed like him and just integrate themselves, like personality-wise, into the culture of the city? I mean, we're having a following and having these like tweets and videos out already. You know,
it's great. It really, it's funny because I think a lot of Liverpool fans didn't really know a lot about him until the video of him in with all of his school friends and the flair. Like when you see that, when that's your first idea of what someone's like as a character, you're like, okay, yeah, we can live with this guy. And so he's already in credit. And then from there, everything is just finished. It reminds me a little bit like Robbo when he first arrived. Everyone was a bit like, well, they got relegated, and we only bought him for 8 million, so surely we could have bought someone better. But then you see him, you see how he is on the pitch, you see how he is in and around people, and you just warm to him. You root for this guy. You're like, he deserves success. And then he started playing really well, and you're like, oh, even better. I'm so glad that this guy is the one who's turned into a world-class player. He really deserves it. And I think we kind of go over the top of it sometimes because it's our club, and we always support the players who are in our club. But there are a lot of really, really cool humans in our squad right now, and it really warms my heart to see. It genuinely is like people who you can always root for, and I don't know. Like I said, we root for them anyway, but it makes me even happier to see those guys get success.
Exactly. Well, we'll leave it on that. Thank you so much, Mo, for spending an hour and a couple of minutes with us. We really do appreciate it.
No, I've had a lot of fun. Like I said, I would. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the near future, whether it's home or away.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, 1 week before the world shut down, Craig over there at the Anfield Rap, they had the trip planned, and they were going to come to Austin, and we had it all organized and ready to have fun. So when they promised to do it still, and when they do, hopefully you get to join them, and we'll have a pint at the pub.
And DJ.
Yes. Well, one of my favorite bands is from Austin, White Denim. And I'm kind of friendly with James as well. So if that was to happen, I would definitely, like, I'll be hiding in suitcases. I don't care what it takes. I'm coming.
There you go. We'll make sure you get over here with him.
Yeah, we'll have a word with Neil.
Definitely. Brilliant. Well, thanks for having me on anyway.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, Mo is Mr. Nice Guy. And just a quick, I met Mo 2 years ago at the Anfield Rap party, and he was a gentleman. And I remember, and I know you remember as well, we outside, they must have sung the Bobby song for at least 2 hours. I know I sung it for an hour. Then my voice got too hoarse, and I had to get the train back to Formby. So, that was
that was so much fun.
Yeah.
It really was. And one of the things I remember about that night as well is to look on the faces of the staff, of the people who were desperately trying to get us out so they could finish their day's job work and go home. We were like, oh, we're not done yet. We just want to sing about this guy a little bit longer. Oh, it's magical.
That's Liverpool fans for you, We won't go home.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to turn off the taps. That's how the people go home, man. No more beer.
I mean, it probably would have taken a hose to get rid of us. Because I left. We were there a long time. I left a lot, and it was like there was still a lot of people there. Like, I genuinely don't know what time they got rid of everybody.
Yeah, it was a great time. I just hope in the future we can you lads can do another one, because it was great.
I think that's definitely the plans are, as soon as we get the full all clear to do everything we need to do and want to do, back on, baby.
Well, please go check out Mo at Anfield Rap. And you can also check us out on Twitter, ATX Reds Podcast, or go to our YouTube channel at the Liverpool Connection Podcast. From me, it's a goodbye until next time. And from Mo, thank you again.
No problem.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.